Are expected as the so-called bonfire of the Quangos hits organisations in the east of England.
Nationally, the government is sweeping away nearly 200 official bodies and merging or reorganising dozens more. Already going are regional development agencies. Now a whole range of farming departments are axed and the work of the Broads Authority is to be reviewed.
The aim is to cut costs and boost accountability. A short while ago, we spoke to our political correspondent Matthew Hudson about the cuts in our region.
Well, yes, that bonfire has certainly singed our region. Too many Quangos affected to mention them all, but a couple of examples of regionally based ones which are going would be the West Northamptonshire and Thurrock development agencies. In addition, bodies like British Waterways, which has a regional headquarters in Milton Keynes, that's going to close. And a number of Quangos which deal with the countryside, such as the Commission for Rural Communities and the Agricultural Wage Board. One more worth mentioning, the Central Office of Information, which employs a lot of people in Cambridge. That's future is still very much under consideration, I'm told.
Matthew, what about local Quangos that are staying?
Well, it may raise a cheer in Norfolk that the Broads Authority, its future is safe, as are the futures of groups like English Heritage and the Environment Agency, which obviously do a lot of work in our region. Now, for the coalition, this exercise has been all about increasing public accountability and saving money, although I would say they freely admit they don't yet know exactly how much money it's going to save. They also say they don't know how many jobs are going to go when some of these groups are closed outright or their work is passed to the voluntary and private sectors. The opposition, of course, well, they say that this exercise could actually end up costing more than it saves.
Matthew Hudson, thank you.
Well, it's coming up to 6:15.
The Princess Royal has been in Newmarkit this afternoon meeting staff at the Injured Jockeys Fund. The charity cares for men and women who've been hurt while riding and promises immediate and ongoing care for all those who need it.
Currently, they spend £2.5 million a year helping them. Sasha Twining went along to meet one of the riders who has benefited from their help.
Had to let him have the lead for the first couple of furlongs.
This is the closest Dominic Fox gets to the course at the moment, watching his old races on internet sites.
You can always tell how easy a horse has won by what he does with his ears. He's pricked his ears with me, which means he had a bit left in the tank.
He's been receiving help from the Injured Jockeys Fund since he had a bad fall last year.
To be honest with you, I've had a lot of injuries in the past. I broke both my legs, my knees, elbows, shoulders, things like that. When I came round, I was aware of the severity, obviously, because of the state I was in.
Dominic is one of the many helped by the fund, and he's been comparatively lucky. He's intending to be back on a horse one day, but many others have suffered career-changing injuries. In Newmarket, the fund headquarters manage their rehabilitation centre in Berkshire and coordinate their mail-order fundraising efforts.
We are extremely fortunate. After the Queen Mother passed away, Princess Royal stepped into her shoes and she loves racing.
Well, since 1964, the fund has helped over 1,000 jockeys and their families. 350 people are receiving help at any one time, and that help amounts to £2.5 million worth of financial aid every year. 40% of the fund's income comes from the sale of things like this: biscuits, toffees, Christmas cards. Oh, and Frankel, who I'm reliably informed is due to do well at Newmarket this Saturday.
As for Dominic, he's hoping to resume his racing career as soon as possible, but is aware that for him it's the mental as well as the physical issues that are proving tough to overcome.
You sit there at home and you're watching racing and you watch the big days like they've got coming up next week at Newmarket with the Cesarewitch and things like that, and you know they're the days you really miss it, and you get the fire in your belly again. You want to get back out there and have a go. And
he says he can't remember much about his accident and what happened immediately afterwards, but it's the support he's received from the fund, both financially and emotionally, that means one day he might be in the weighing room again. Sasha Twining, Anglia News, Newmarket.
Police investigating an attack in Southend which left a man unconscious say it was so brutal a martial arts expert may have been involved. A 21-year-old man was attacked after a row in the High Street. He was knocked unconscious and left with a fractured cheekbone and vertebrae. Police say the way the attacker moves suggests he has some form of martial arts or boxing experience.
The first of a new series of trains intended for Olympic visitors have come off the production line. The trains, costing £155 million, will run between Stansted Airport, Cambridge and London by May next year. National Express East Anglia has also refurbished carriages.
A Suffolk MP will stand up in the Commons this evening and demand reforms that he hopes will save our fishing industry.
Peter Aldous, who represents Waveney, says fishermen's livelihoods are in more danger than ever before. Kate Prout reports.
Sam Cole sells his fish right across East Anglia. His family has been doing it for 4 generations. Living in Lowestoft, you'd think most of it would be caught locally, but not so.
Halibut, that's come over from Iceland. And then here we have Dover sole and sea bass, and that is virtually the entire landing on Lowestoft Fish Market this morning. We've just spent £2.5 million on a brand new factory, and the majority of the fish we're getting is coming from other countries. We're an island, we've got sustainable national resource, and we're just wasting it. All the fish, the majority of the fish that the fishermen are currently catching, they're having to chuck over the side dead. How can that be, a good system? It's not.
Like many of our seaside towns, Lowestoft was built on the fishing industry, notably herring. But whereas 50 years ago there were hundreds of trawlers and fishing boats coming in and out of this port, today there are barely a handful. In fact, I counted just 10 this morning. The Common Fisheries Policy, which is supposed to conserve fish stocks, is an EU policy that many believe is just not working.
It's too centralised at the moment, too bureaucratic, too distant from actually the fisheries themselves. And you need local people, that's the fishermen themselves, scientists and other people who know those fisheries best to actually be running them on a day-to-day basis.
The fishermen themselves want to be given specific days to fish instead of quotas, which forces them to throw good fish overboard. And they're asking the government to help steer their industry into calmer waters. Kate Prout, Anglia News, Lowestoft.